Thanks for joining the IM meetup, everyone, and welcome to our passwordless demos. Today, we're going to take a look at 4 passwordless demos. One for Cryonic, one Cosmos, Beyond Identity, and Caller Verify. Talking a little bit about the need for passwordless. Workers spend a lot of time identifying themselves, and I would like to save some time. I don't know about you. So that is one of the main drivers for passwordless, is to save time and effort. Also, as we're in COVID times, touching those communal keyboards means an increased risk of spreading viruses. Fun fact, communal keyboards are actually dirtier than a toilet seat because they're cleaned so much less frequently. Thank you for Chelsea, who found that fun fact out for us. And also is a better way to authenticate, because as we all know, passwords are easily guessed. A lot of them have been compromised in the past. So using another method of authentication is often a huge security boom. Looking at password solutions with Okta, we want to verify users more securely with some sort of token-based authentication, which is a smoother and much more sanitary experience, not touching those nasty keyboards. And not using a password, using a more secure token means that we can be better assured that the user who's authenticating is who they say they are. The first passwordless item we're going to look at is Cryonic, and we actually have Peter from Cryonic in the house with us. So if you do have any questions for him, feel free to jump in or write them in the chat for us. See, really kind of looks like something that Steve Jobs would have designed back in the day, but this comes to us right out of Europe from the Cryonic team. Key Vault has some really great features. It has a microphone, fingerprint sensor, NFC, which we'll show you today, which means you can open doors and things with it, as well as log into systems. Has micro USB, Bluetooth, so you can use it for mobile applications in terms of logging into your mobile phone with your Bluetooth. And it's even waterproof. And by waterproof, I mean you can take in the shower, but maybe not scuba diving. Some of the security features of Cryonic: it never connects to the internet, which means there's no chance that the information on your Cryonic token is going to be overwritten, so it's very secure. There's no possibility to install malware because it isn't internet connected. It's protected by biometrics, specifically the fingerprint, which you can see in the left-hand corner there. And now I'll pass it over to Mike, who's going to demo for us.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. While we're doing that, Peter, do you have any other comments you want to add in about Cryonic?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very nice summary, I have to say. We have designed the token to bind the identity as close to possible to the token. So one of the biometrics that we are working on very hard is what we call behavioral biometrics, where it actually recognizes handwritten PIN or a spoken PIN. For now, especially in these demos, it won't be shown because it's still a little bit hard on the UX on the user side. So I guess we'll see only the fingerprint this time.
Thank you. So this is the demo. Hopefully people can still see my screen. So on the left here, we've got our mock healthcare application that we've set up. And the idea here is that a healthcare provider, a healthcare worker, could use the token and authenticate themselves at the start of their workday using the Cryonic Key Vault, and then authenticate throughout their day through using passwordless technologies. So we'll take this through you and understand kind of what we're looking at. On the right-hand side, we've got an NFC reader that's hooked up to my laptop. And on the left-hand side, we've got the mock healthcare application that's actually hooked up to our Okta environment. And something to keep in mind here is that Okta is the identity provider, and the authentication is actually provided through the Cryonic token passwordless through what's called an identity provider IDP integration. So we'll see this in work now. So this is the token here, you can see. And then I've already authenticated to it with my fingerprint. And if I go ahead and log in here, we'll see that it takes me automatically from our Okta tenant into the Cryonic gateway, log in with username. It's going to prompt me now to scan with the token. And I'm authenticated into the application without having to type on a keyboard. It's that simple, it's that easy. I'm going to pass it back to Tracy now.
Thanks, Mike. Before we move on, are there any questions on Cryonic? If not, we'll move on to the next slide. The next authentication method we'd like to look at is OneCosmos. So OneCosmos is a authentication method we're very keen on for our financial clients. So basically, OneCosmos uses the power of blockchain to provide a highly secure solution. It's also able to import your government ID. So in situations where you're needing to authenticate yourself to say get a mortgage or whatnot, OneCosmos can verify the validity of your ID. And then if you're doing some sort of video conferencing for wealth management or another secure financial transaction, the financial institution can rest assured that you are who you say you are. And next we will demo OneCosmos. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you. So we'll stay in this for a minute here and just talk briefly about the OneCosmos application itself. And we're going to do a live demo of the actual authentication into an application. That's a mock investment application. But this is the enrollment for a OneCosmos block ID for enrolling in your driver's license and Face ID. So we'll just play that quickly here and then we can talk through it.
First, Mike opens the OneCosmos app and securely signs in with a fingerprint. To enroll a driver's license, he'll first have to enroll his live ID. So he navigates to the Enroll tab and selects Live ID. There are some instructions, but we just press Next, as we'll be showing you what happens. To enroll his face in Live ID, OneCosmos asks him to make a few faces, like blinking and smiling. And then, just like that, he has a Live ID enrolled. From here, Mike can select driver's license and enroll it. Please forgive this part, as this is where I badly superimposed a fake license over Mike's. So as you can see, he scanned the back of his license and then the front. And in just a few seconds, his driver's license is enrolled. Getting OneCosmos set up to verify you with a government-issued ID is easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Awesome. Yeah, and as you can see, it's pretty quick, pretty easy to do. And then we'll go into a demo here. Let me bring up the OneCosmos demonstration.
I should also mention this can compete with Ping's government ID verification solution, and it's fully integratable with Okta.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the Invest mock application that we've got here, and you can see that it's just simply a login form that we were used to, but we've also got an additional QR code on the left-hand side here. And with the OneCosmos application that I've already got installed and enrolled on my mobile device, we can take that QR code and do a passwordless authentication using that identity that's already on my phone. Now, keep in mind, along with this as well, that Okta is the identity provider. They are the identity store. And then OneCosmos is doing the authentication through the identity provider. So we'll refresh this to get a new QR code. Open up my OneCosmos application, which has a scan QR code button I'll click on. Use my phone's camera to scan the QR code. Click on the authentication message, and then use my Face ID or my Touch ID to do the authentication. Once I've done that, the application already knows that I've done the authenticated process through my phone and signs me onto the application. No touching dirty keyboards, and I'm signed on. Thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Tracy.
Thanks, Mike. Now we'll tell you a little bit about Beyond Identity, which is a unique certificate-based passwordless solution. Not to be mistaken with Beyond ID, which is a completely different product. Beyond Identity is something we really like for workforce type solutions where you know the device and can trust the certificates. Beyond Identity is a fast and secure omni-channel authentication without passwords, one-time codes, or having to pick up a second device. Achieve continuous authentication and enforce risk-based authentication or access policies with granular device security data. Reduce risk by ensuring your employees can only log in through trusted devices. So again, this would not be as applicable on the SIAM side where devices may not be trustable, but on the workforce side, very applicable. And fantastic for environments where you have BYOD environments. Very user-friendly, not a lot of friction, 0 clicks from any device. And we love giving 0 clicks. Next, I'll pass over to Mike to demo Beyond Identity.
Thanks, Tracy. For this demo here, we don't actually have a mock application, but what we do have is a link to our Okta tenant. Now that's sufficient here in this process because we're actually demonstrating here a workforce authentication with Beyond Identity. So Beyond Identity works by installing a client on my application. If we bring up the Beyond Identity application, we can see that I've got an identity enrolled here. And the client works as a certificate and captures key security information about my device. So if we look at this credential, you can see that it's actually been created earlier this year. You can see it's got its own fingerprint. But more importantly, it's actually captured information about my device. So I know what the application version is. I know what OS version I'm running. I know from the standpoint of whether or not I've got a TPM, so I've got a hardware trusted platform module, whether I've not or do not have hardware disk encryption enabled, whether or not I've got software antivirus enabled and firewall enabled as well. So that information is important because as a workforce authentication process, you can actually set sign-on and paste policies by device and restrict access to applications or to only encrypted devices, for example, right? So sign in is seamless. I just hit my username and then here I go. So let's try this. Bring this over here. Logs in, brings up the authenticator, communicates with the Beyond Identity application to validate my identification. I'm verified, and I'm signed on to our tenant, just like that. Without having to type in a password, without having to use any keyboards. And this also helps you to register those BYOD devices. So in an environment where an employee brings their own laptop or wants to use their own laptop from home, like it is very common these days, you can actually have them download and register their client on their own devices and lock down so that they only have access to particular applications within that environment. So it's seamless and it's Beyond Identity. Thank you. I'll just pass it back to Tracy now.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions on Beyond Identity or One Cosmos? If not, we will move on to our very own in-house Caller Verify. Say goodbye to bad guys with Caller Verify. The need for Caller Verify came out of security questions not being secure enough, friction and frustration for callers. And I use the example of my dad. I was at his house one day when he was trying to get verified through his bank and they asked him 3 questions he didn't know in a row. And he turned green and went full Incredible Hulk because he was just so frustrated. I was like, there has to be a better way. And in the banking industry in particular, there's a lot of family fraud. So for example, Junior phones in and gets access to Grandpa's account because he knows the answers to Grandpa's security questions. Not acceptable. So we needed another way. The solution for that, something that Mike developed for us, is a Caller Verify solution. So we used Okta's built-in easy push notification system to remove that verification friction. So now Dad doesn't have to remember the answers to his security question. We've improved our security compliance because we're now using a soft token, which is of course more secure than security questions. It's going to help your organization meet those audit standards. Most organizations are following the NIST standards, which caution against using security questions for security reasons. And finally, it makes the account security just accessible to people who are having memory issues or maybe don't see as well and can't read a texted code. So it's much easier on the user, the caller. So some of the use cases for Caller Verify is to prevent the unauthorized porting of phone numbers. So we've, I think, all seen that in the telecom industry. The CRT in Canada has kind of cracked down on the telecoms because they were letting unauthorized people port phone numbers. But also, for business in general, in terms of securing those high-value transactions like e-transfers, wire transfers in the FI space, or high-value consumer purchases. There's also a lot of fraud in the airline industry where people will buy a ticket with someone else's financial information. And I will pass over to Mike to give us a demo of Caller Verify.
Thank you, Tracy. I'll just bring the Caller Verify app in here. This is the Caller Verify landing page. So this is the integration we've got right now within Okta, is that this application is an OIDC application, and it can pass under any of the sign-on and application MFA policies that your environment has. So we'll log into this here. And we prompted for authentication. And then I'm presented with the application's main page. This page is simple, yet it's very powerful. And it integrates with all your identities within Okta. So you can search for an account based on an identified attribute. And this is something that a caller is going to give the call center agent. And this is something that's uniquely identifying them within the environment. So let me pull up. Tracy, do you have your phone on you? I wonder if yours is a verified phone. Let's take a look. Okay, so as you can see here, Tracy's account is currently in recovery mode, which means that she's actually gone through the password reset process. So if I find another account here to do a demonstration with, we can see the actual status. So I'll search for one of my accounts, my demo accounts here, and I'll turn off some unnecessary additional fields. So what we can see from this is the important pull from those identities in Okta, and allows the call center agent to make a very quick and educated decision on how they're going to assist that person. So if we look at the status, we can see that they've got deprovision status. So those are accounts that have already been removed from the system. Maybe that person shouldn't be calling in, maybe they closed their accounts. Locked out person, maybe that they've had too many failed password attempts, and then they can help that person in a different way. They can talk to them through a password reset or an unlock. And then we've got an active account. So an active account is something that we can actually do the verification for right away. And if we look at their enroll column, we can see that they're actually enrolled in 3 different types of adaptive MFA. We've got Okta Verify Push, the fallback to TOTP, and Google Authenticator, which is also another TOTP factor. And if we look at the action process here, we can actually do a verification right from this dashboard. And then we get to choose what factor. Now we typically will recommend the push factor. It's the easiest, it's most accessible to those without technology backgrounds. It's also accessible to those with vision problems and things like that. So it's just a yes or no on their phone. Now I'm going to play the part of the call center and the caller. I've got my phone in front of me here, and I can see that I don't have anything right now on my phone. I have no notifications. But if I click verify, what's going to happen is it's going to reach out and trigger the registered device for that user. And on their phone, I've actually now got a notification message that says, did I just try and sign on? Now I can do one of 2 things. I can say, yes, that's me. No, it's not me. Or I can actually ignore that and swipe it away. If I say, yes, that's me, I'm still prompted to use either Face ID or Touch ID to validate that I am the owner of this device. Now that I've done that, you can see that I've successfully verified. And the call center agent can now assist that person knowing that they are who they say they are and they're talking to the right person. Now that's a successful use case, but we all know that our personal information is really not personal. And there's multiple ways to get access to email addresses, phone numbers, first, last names, and addresses, especially in the case with some financial institutions going through things like family fraud. So if we do a verification for somebody that potentially phones in and isn't the actual person we're looking for or talking to, they won't have access to that verified device. So if I do the verification again, they won't be able to respond to that on their device. Now, if I'm the person who owns that registered device and I look at that and say, I'm in the middle of dinner with my family, or I'm out and having a barbecue, and I get that message, I can either ignore it or I can actually actively deny and reject that. So if I say, no, that's not me, I'm not talking to my bank right now, you can see that the authentication has actually been rejected. At this point, the call center agent can take that call and refer them to a fraud department or flag their account for fraudulent transactions. It's that easy, it's that simple. It's call or verify. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any questions on call or verify? And just to clarify, call or verify backends onto Okta exclusively. I know we've given you a lot of information quickly, and it may take you a little bit to digest, but if you do have any questions, we do have open office hours every Tuesday, TechJutsu Tuesdays. So feel free to, off our website, get the contact information or scan the QR code here and come say hello to us. Thank you for participating and being a great audience. I know we're all Zoom fatigued, so I appreciate your time and interest.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great day.